that Diana, Princess of Wales, has in fact been killed in that car accident.
Princess Diana's secret will was found, and what it reveals about Camilla makes the old royal wound feel painfully alive again. This is not just about a legal document. It is about Diana's final wishes, the people she wanted protected, and the hidden meaning inside what she left behind. For years, the world thought it understood the triangle between Diana, Charles, and Camilla. But a will can say things no palace statement ever would. It can show fear, loyalty, heartbreak, and warning without raising its voice. That is why this discovery feels so serious. It points back to a private battle that never truly ended, even after Diana was gone. The shocking part is not only that the document exists, it is that the choices inside it may reveal how deeply Diana understood what was happening around her. She was not just writing about property. She was protecting memory, family, and the truth she believed would matter after her death. And when Camilla's name returns through that lens, the meaning becomes much harder to ignore. So, what did Princess Diana's secret will reveal? And why does it make Camilla's place in the royal past look so shocking? June 1st, 1993, was the day Princess Diana tried to put order around a life that no longer felt stable. She was only 32 years old, still legally married to Charles, and already living through the collapse of the marriage the world had once treated like a fairy tale. By then, Camilla was no longer just a private suspicion or a name whispered inside palace circles. Her place in Charles's life had become public, documented, and impossible for Diana to ignore. So when Diana signed her will, she was not doing it from a place of calm. She was writing her future while the present was falling apart. At the center of that will were William and Harry. Diana named them as her main heirs, the two people she most wanted to protect. But she also remembered others who mattered to her. She left £50,000 to her butler, Paul Burrell, and set aside 25% of her personal property for her 17 godchildren. That detail says something important about Diana. She was not thinking only like a royal, or only like a former wife of the future king. She was thinking like a mother, a friend, and a woman who understood that personal belongings can carry love in a way money never can. One day later, Diana wrote her letter of wishes by hand. In it, Diana explained how she wanted her jewelry and personal belongings to be passed on. She asked her executors to carry out those wishes as soon as possible, and she seemed to believe the instruction was clear enough to be followed. To Diana, these were not just objects. A ring, a necklace, a dress, or a small personal item could hold memory. She knew that after death, the things a person leaves behind can become the last pieces of them that others are allowed to keep. Diana's will became unusual because, unlike most senior royal wills, it was made public. Royal wills are often sealed for decades, and Prince Philip's will was sealed for 90 years. But Diana's will was released in 1998, only 1 year after she died. That meant the public could read her words and see what she had intended. But there was a colder part of the story hidden behind that access. People could see what Diana had written, but they could not yet see how those wishes had already been altered. 1993 gives the will its real weight. Diana was recording secret tapes for Andrew Morton, confronting Camilla privately, and telling people close to her that she knew exactly what was happening in her marriage. This was not casual paperwork. This was a mother trying to protect her sons and preserve pieces of her private life at a moment when almost everything else felt beyond her control. The will was legal on paper, but emotionally, it reads like a woman trying to leave clear instructions before anyone else could rewrite her story. Diana believed her wishes were clear, but after her death, the paper she trusted would become the beginning of another fight. 1995. Panorama interview gave the public the line that would follow Princess Diana for the rest of her story. "There were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded." She said it calmly, almost softly, but the meaning landed with force. Camilla was no longer a shadow in the background of the marriage. She was now part of the public record. For nearly 3 decades, that one sentence shaped how people understood Diana's pain, Charles's distance, and the collapse happening behind palace walls. Morton tapes from 1992 showed a more private version of Diana. She described a party where Charles and Camilla disappeared, and how she went downstairs alone and found them talking in the basement. Instead of walking away, Diana asked to speak to Camilla privately. That moment mattered because, in Diana's own mind, she had finally done something. She had stopped carrying the humiliation in silence and said what she had been feeling for years. Jenny Bond later revealed a side of Diana that most people never heard during her lifetime. In private conversations at Kensington Palace, Diana reportedly spoke about Camilla with more nuance than the public version allowed. According to Bond, Diana believed Camilla was loyal, discreet, and deserved some form of recognition. That does not erase the pain or excuse the affair, but it does show something more human. Diana could still recognize loyalty, even in the woman connected to her deepest hurt. Bond kept that comment private for years because Diana had made the boundary clear. After those private conversations, Diana would remind her that the words were only between them. So the more complicated view of Camilla never became part of the public record while Diana was alive. It surfaced only decades later, after Camilla had become queen, when the old triangle had already been reshaped by time, survival, and ceremony. Diana's public words and Diana's private words do not cancel each other out. They show 2 truths living inside the same woman. Publicly, she was wounded, exposed, and forced to explain the pressure inside her marriage. Privately, she could still see qualities in Camilla that others refused to imagine. That is what makes the record so powerful. The real story is not hatred alone. It is pain, dignity, and understanding existing at the same time. Diana's feelings about Camilla were never as simple as the headlines made them sound. But the next question is colder. After Diana was gone, did the people she trusted protect what she had written? High Court records valued Diana's estate at £21,711,485, which became roughly £17 million after inheritance tax. On paper, this was a large estate with clear instructions attached to it. Diana believed those instructions would protect the people she named, especially her sons. But the fragile part was not only the money, it was the wording. The estate had value, but the language inside the documents would decide how much power Diana's wishes really had. The letter of wishes explained what Diana wanted done with her private belongings. She directed that all her jewelry and 75% of her chattels should go to William and Harry, while the remaining 25% should go to her 17 godchildren. She also asked the executors to follow her written memoranda as soon as possible, but not later than 2 years following my death. To Diana, that likely sounded clear. It was personal, specific, and written with care. British law turned that care into something weaker than Diana may have understood. Because the letter used softer words like wishes and discretion rather than strict binding language, the court later treated it as non-binding. That meant Princess Diana's executors were not legally forced to follow every detail exactly. The document that was meant to preserve her intentions became the opening through which those intentions could be changed. The problem was not what Diana wanted, it was how the law read what she wrote. Diana could not have known that without precise legal advice about the wording. To her, the letter was attached to the will because it mattered. It explained her wishes in plain human terms. But the people named to carry them out, her mother and her sister, later used that legal space to alter what she had written. That is the painful part. The power did not move to strangers. It moved to the people Diana had trusted most. Diana's will asked for her letter of wishes to be honored, but the court decided the letter still left room for judgment. So the executors had discretion, and they used it. William, Harry, and the 17 godchildren remained part of the estate plan, but the plan no longer belonged fully to Diana. Her words stayed on the page. The meaning of those words was placed in someone else's hands. Diana's wishes did not disappear. But once the court allowed interpretation, they were no longer hers alone. 4 months after Diana's death, the public was still grieving, and the palace was still managing the shock left behind. Behind that grief, Francis Shand Kidd and Lady Sarah McCorquodale went to probate court with an application for a variation order. William was only 15. Harry was only 13. The decision being requested would affect their mother's estate, but they were still children, caught inside a loss they had barely begun to understand. A variation order gave the executors permission to distribute Diana's estate differently from the terms written in the will. The court approved it, but the parents of the 17 godchildren were not told before the application or while it was being made. That detail matters because Diana had written those godchildren into her wishes herself. Yet the families connected to them were not given a chance to know that those wishes were about to change. The godchildren's parents found out later, not through a direct message from Diana's family, but through press coverage and an unrelated legal case that surfaced years after the order. For several of them, the discovery was deeply unsettling. The provision Diana had made for their children had already been reduced before they even knew it was under review. The hurt came not only from what changed, but from how quietly it happened. William and Harry had their inheritance delayed from 25 to 30. They could receive income from the trust at 25, but the principal would not pass to them until their 30th birthdays. At the same time, the godchildren's 25% share of Diana's personal property became one item each, chosen by the executors. A meaningful share became a controlled keepsake, and the difference was not small. The unanswered question is why the families were never told. Was the aim to protect William and Harry's share, to serve another interest, or simply to avoid the complications of consultation? No one involved has offered a clear public explanation. The quietest line may be the most accurate. Silence became part of the inheritance. Diana's wishes were changed quietly, and the people most affected would only understand the weight of it years later. Diana's 17 godchildren were not a minor detail in her will. They were included deliberately, and her letter of wishes made the intention even clearer. 25% of her personal belongings was meant to go to them together. These were not random names in legal paperwork. They were part of Diana's private world, people connected to relationships she had chosen and valued. By remembering them, Diana was leaving more than objects. She was leaving proof that they had mattered to her. Most of the godchildren were still children when Diana died, so they could not understand the legal process, let alone challenge it. Their parents were not told the variation order was being requested, which meant there was no warning and no chance to object. The application moved forward without their knowledge, and that is what makes this part feel so cold. A decision was made about Diana's gift before the families even knew the gift was at risk. Harry turned 30 in 2014, and only then did the godchildren receive anything from Diana's personal property. By then, more than 16 years had passed since her death. Instead of the shared portion Diana had written into her wishes, each person received one item, chosen by the executors. Some reports called the experience tacky, because a single keepsake could not carry the same meaning as the larger share Diana appeared to intend. Diana had chosen these connections personally. These were families she knew, children she had accepted as godchildren, and people she cared enough about to name in writing. Her purpose seemed simple: to leave them something with memory, not just value. But the variation order turned that intention into a much smaller gesture. For several recipients, the result did not feel like Diana's full wish. It felt like a reduced version of it. The godchildren remain one of the quietest parts of the Diana estate dispute, even though their loss is one of the clearest. The order changed what Diana wanted for people she loved, and it happened without their knowledge. For years, the public knew parts of the will, but not the emotional cost of the change. Diana had written them in for a reason. The harder question is, who decided that reason was not enough? December 1997 sits at the center of the unanswered question. Prince William was 15 years old, and Prince Harry was 13, only months after they had walked behind their mother's coffin in a funeral watched by more than 2 billion people. They were children, not legal adults. They had no real standing to approve or reject changes to Diana's estate, even though the changes would later shape what happened in their names. Court records framed the variation order as serving William and Harry's interests. The key argument was that delaying access to their inheritance until age 30 was prudent, because receiving such a large estate at 25 could place too much responsibility on young men too soon. That explanation may have been genuine. It may even have been protective. But a protective reason does not erase the colder fact. The boys were still too young to meaningfully agree. William and Harry have never publicly said whether they were consulted before the order was granted. They have never confirmed they approved the changes, or even said they were told afterward. That silence matters, because this was not a minor adjustment. The variation order changed how their mother's wishes worked in practice. Without a statement from either prince, the record leaves a space where the most important answer should be. Diana's 17 godchildren were directly affected by the decision. The order reduced what they received from a meaningful share of personal belongings to a much smaller outcome, while the prince's own inheritance was delayed by 5 years. The decision was significant, and it affected real people. Yet it was made in the names of 2 children who had just lost their mother, and could not have given informed consent in any full legal or emotional sense. Decades of silence make this the most conspicuous gap in the estate story. Both princes have spoken many times about Princess Diana, her life, her memory, and her legacy, but not this specific decision. The line is simple. Silence becomes evidence only because the question refuses to go away. Until William and Harry address what they knew, the Diana estate story keeps returning to the same unresolved point. The paperwork says the decision protected the princes. But the next question is, who benefited most from the power to change Diana's final wishes? Diana's estate story did not open through a careful explanation from the people managing it. The full picture of the variation order did not come from an announcement, a press release, or any clear statement by the Spencer family. It surfaced through something separate, an unrelated criminal trial involving Paul Burrell in 2002. That is what makes this part feel so strange. A private legal change to Diana's final wishes reached the public only because another case forced estate details into view. Paul Burrell's 2002 trial began as a case about alleged theft from Diana's estate. But once the proceedings started, details about the estate's administration and the variation order entered the public record. The public learned what had been changed and how it had been changed, not through transparency, but almost by accident. The cleanest description is this: the truth came through the side door. A criminal case became the route into a family decision no one had publicly explained. Godchildren's parents reportedly learned through press coverage that a variation order had been obtained without their knowledge. For many, the reaction was not loud anger, but surprise mixed with quiet hurt. They had not understood that Diana's provision for their children had been significantly reduced. That matters because the change affected people who had no warning and no chance to respond. The emotional damage came from discovering afterward that something Diana intended had already been altered. William and Harry were named as the reason behind the variation, with the public explanation focused on their benefit and protection. But that answer left a separate question untouched. Why were the godchildren's families not consulted or even informed before the application was made? The official framing may explain why the prince's inheritance was delayed, but it does not fully explain the silence around the others affected. That gap remains without a satisfying public answer. Burial trial remains one of the strangest turns in the Diana estate record. A case about stolen property accidentally became the way the world learned that Diana's written wishes had been changed by the people she trusted to carry them out. Nothing about that route felt direct or clean. The trial did not begin as an investigation into the will, but it exposed the deeper issue. Diana's instructions had been altered, and the public only found out years later. The trial did not just expose a legal decision. It raised the harder question of whether Diana's final wishes were protected or quietly managed into something else. 1993 was the year Diana tried to put order around a life that no longer felt secure. She signed her will, and around the same period, Diana told Andrew Morton something that now reads with painful irony. "From day one, I always knew I would never be the next queen." At the time, it sounded like resignation from a woman who understood the marriage was breaking beyond repair. But history moved in a direction even she could not have written. The woman Diana believed stood between her and peace would one day become the next queen. May 6, 2023 turned that old wound into a public image. Camilla Parker Bowles, once the woman Diana privately nicknamed the Rottweiler, was crowned Queen of the United Kingdom inside Westminster Abbey. This was the same Camilla Diana had confronted at a party, a scene she later described in detail on the Morton tapes. The reversal was precise and almost impossible to ignore. Diana never reached the throne. Camilla did, and the ceremony gave the old triangle a final shape no interview could soften. The coronation reopened the Diana archive across the world. Old clips resurfaced, the Morton tapes spread again, and the public returned to the same painful questions about marriage, loyalty, and survival. During that renewed attention, Jenny Bond revealed what Diana had once said privately at Kensington Palace. Diana had described Camilla as loyal, discreet, and deserving of recognition. Coming after Camilla became queen, the timing mattered. It showed that Diana's private understanding of Camilla was more complicated than the public battle people preferred to remember. Diana's public anger and Diana's private judgment belong in the same record. One version gave the world the wounded wife, naming the pressure inside her marriage with devastating clarity. The other showed a woman capable of seeing qualities in Camilla, even while suffering from her presence. That is not a contradiction. It is the complexity of real pain. Diana could feel betrayed and still recognize loyalty. She could resent Camilla's role in her life and still understand why Charles trusted her. Althorp holds Diana's grave, while Buckingham Palace holds Camilla's crown. Diana's estate has been distributed, though partly through terms she did not specify, and the public still debates what was changed after her death. The two women's paths ended in the most uneven way imaginable. One buried young, the other crowned after decades of waiting. That imbalance is why the story still produces documentaries, articles, and public argument nearly 3 decades after Diana's death. The ending never felt settled, because emotionally, it never was. Camilla became what Diana said she would never be. But the question left behind is not only who wore the crown, it is who got to control Diana's wishes after she was gone. Diana's will is publicly available, and the first important fact is simple. It does not mention Camilla. It does not contain a hidden line about her or a secret instruction aimed at her future place in royal life. The title's suggestion works because the Diana-Camilla story remains one of the most searched emotional arcs in modern royal history. But the document itself points somewhere else. The real discovery is not about Camilla. It is about what happened after Diana's wishes were written down. Letter of Wishes reveals something more uncomfortable than any Camilla connection. It shows how much room existed for Diana's own family to override what she believed she had protected. Her instructions for William and Harry, her jewelry, her belongings, and her 17 godchildren were not preserved exactly as she wrote them. The legal protection was weaker than the emotion behind it. Diana arranged her estate with care, but the final distribution showed that care is not always the same as control. 1993 gives the will its context. Diana signed it when Camilla's relationship with Charles was causing deep public and private damage to the marriage. She died in 1997, long before she could have imagined Camilla one day becoming queen. By 2014, Diana's estate had been fully distributed, almost 10 years before Camilla's coronation. So the connection is not written inside the will. It lives around it, in the timing, the marriage, and the royal history that followed. Diana's mother and Diana's sister were the people she trusted to carry out her instructions. The strongest version supported by the record is not that the will exposes a secret about Camilla. It is that the will exposes a quieter injury, trust placed in family, followed by secret changes to final instructions no one publicly explained. The line is simple. The document did not betray Diana, but the handling of it changed what she left behind. Diana does not need an invented secret document to make this story powerful. Her written wishes were changed by trusted executors, and the people affected by those changes were not fully informed at the time. That is specific, verifiable, and emotionally heavy without exaggeration. The real documentary is not about a hidden attack on Camilla. It is about a woman who tried to protect her intentions in writing, only for the law and family discretion to reshape them after her death. The will does not reveal a secret about Camilla. It reveals a harder question. When Diana's voice was reduced to paper, who had the power to decide what that voice still meant? Diana died at 36 in August 1997, but her estate did not stop raising questions. William and Harry received their inheritances on their 30th birthdays in 2009 and 2014, and the 17 godchildren received single items in 2014. The estate is settled, yet no one involved has publicly answered whether her wishes were truly honored. December 1997 brought the variation order, the last major decision made before the public knew anything was being decided. That lack of transparency still feels like the quietest missing chapter in Diana's story. Many people know the marriage, the tapes, and the funeral, but not how her estate was changed behind closed legal doors. Camilla now holds the rank Diana once said she would never have. Diana confronted her in a basement, called her the Rottweiler, and privately described her as loyal and discreet. That final detail stayed hidden for nearly 30 years because Diana asked for silence, and only now has it entered the wider record. William and Harry remain the most human question. Did they know their mother's wishes for her 17 godchildren were changed in December 1997, only 4 months after she died? If they did, what did they think as grieving teenagers whose names were used to justify the decision? Diana's will and letter of wishes were meant to speak after her death. She trusted her mother and sister to honor both. The documented record shows those instructions were changed, and that is enough. As the final line should be, the real secret is not what Diana wrote, but who decided what her words still meant. Diana's estate may be closed on paper, but the question of who truly owns her legacy has never been settled.